Welcome back once again to the Imaginary Gallery. It's TJ, and tonight is follow-up to a previous viewer question which involved Hoover, triangulation, and manipulation post-discard, which I learned later that in this particular situation it wasn't really an actual discard on the part of the narcopathic monster. It was the target wised up and discarded the narcissist. Well, that poses a very big problem in this circumstance because why? Well, you have to remember the basics. Keep in mind, the narcopathic toxic monster, number one priority, they must be in control. Number two, they must be the center of attention. Plus, couple that with the fact they don't have any conscience. They don't feel guilt or shame or remorse. So, if they come into your life and they have plans for you and you turn them away before they've completed their plans, expect hell. Because when you meet this kind of person, you just think you're meeting a person and you're slowly revealing this and that about yourself, but if it's one of these monsters, they are recording every detail. They soak in everything like a sponge, such as all the things you like and all the things you dislike. The things you like immediately become showered back upon you or mirrored to you. The things you don't like are kept away for safekeeping for their insurance policy when they know that you will eventually figure them out. They've got a big arsenal to use against you. My speculation is this creature picked up on the fact somewhere, somehow, that family and friends' opinions are very important to her. That was like kept in the back pocket, ready for use later. So when the target wised up and said it's over because of the cheating involved, this narcissistic monster already knows, this target's family and friends matter. And what do? They do the flying monkey, which we covered in the last video, which I'm going to provide a link for it in this one, just in case you want to match the two stories up together. They do utilize the flying monkeys. You introduce them to your family, for example, which is not normally the case in some cases. Well, you've pretty much opened them up into your life, which means if their plans are to capture you and you exit before they're ready, well, they will utilize every resource you've given them, which you just thought you were being nice by introducing. They see it differently. They see it as access points to utilize, and they may have several, and you have to, like I said before in the previous video, they will tell each one in its own compartment what it needs to hear. Like if it's one of your good friends and it's trying to get to you, so it flirts with your good friends, and the good friend like wants to date them or something, he'll go back to you and say, I don't even like her, I'm not attracted to her, but she wants to date me, I want you only. Like it's supposed to convince you to say, okay, come back. And it's a tactic. They've mastered this. Remember, they've done this stuff all their lives, and if they're older, they've perfected certain aspects of it. Certain parts are like, they think to themselves, this one's going to work, this works. If it even gets them a conversation with you or something, if you've gone no contact, well, that is a bonus. That is supply, because they're thinking, she can't leave me alone for very long. She's responding. And it's sickening, and it's not the way most of us are raised to behave, but that will happen. I've thought about this kind of stuff a lot, and I kind of picture the Cluster B experience as kind of like a twisted Twilight Zone infected fantasy island. Fantasy island begins with someone coming into your life and noticing all of the areas you're interested in and all of the desires that you have to be a healthy person and happy person. They come in and swoop in and try to cover every single one of them. But at the same time, behind the scenes, they're noticing all of the things that would destroy your life, and those are kept to the side. So the fantasy island starts out wonderfully, the best ever, and then at the end it turns out to be the worst ever, and that's too much of a difference between A and Z for the normal regular person to handle, because it's kind of hard to go through months, years, and so on of thinking someone adores you completely no matter what you do, and then that same person to do the exact opposite. It's just not, as they say, normal. But the follow-up here is there's a lot of embarrassment, especially if she was taken in by this creature and shared it with the parents and friends and family. Well, that kind of creates an expectation, and of course the monster knows this. I touched on it in the last one. They will go to the different sources as flying monkeys to cry to them, even though they're already probably setting up marriage with someone else behind the target's back. They'll still try every last ditch effort to still maintain, because remember, these people are not real people. They are void, they're empty inside. And in addition to the things I mentioned before about the control and attention, well, they need to have their supply filled, which means if you're casually getting involved with them, they'll have 6 or 7 other casual involvements as well that you'll never know about. And if you ask about, you'll be told you're paranoid. They're always looking for the next thing. Even if they're telling you, well, when we get married, we can go here and there. Well, they're telling somebody else that too. And when you all, or all of you, realize that you've been had, you'll be even more shocked when you see the other person. Well, so it didn't work out anyway. I'm getting married to her. Bye. And you'll be like, what? How can you do that? Because they're not real people. As far as the situation here, it sounds to me like all that went on already with the hoovering attempts and with the going to each family member and seeking support and hoping it gets back to you, the target. So that'll make you think, oh, maybe I should call him or her, or, I guess. And that's all planned. It's made that way. And you think you're just going through a situation that you're perplexed within and think, how could this be? But you don't realize that this is a game that's been played 1,000,000 times before from the other person. So even though it may appear like it's all fresh and new, it's not. It's tried and practiced. But yes, if you've brought this person to the whole family and everyone knows it, and then it probably realized its Hoover efforts were not working, well, it's always got a backup like most of them. So if it ran off with a new one, then that leaves you as the potential object of ridicule or embarrassment, because everyone around that you'd said, look at this great guy, he's so wonderful, isn't he? Oh, yes, he is. And now he's gone. You might be subjected to, well, what was wrong with you? Why couldn't you keep him? What's wrong with you? Well, he's happy with her. And of course, you'll see him happy with her too and think, what went wrong? Well, nothing went wrong with you. You figured him out and you were no longer useful. That's it. I mean, it sounds simple, but it is. Of course, it would never say that to you. But the fact is, you figured it out. And of course, if you go to your family and friends, I figured him out. He was a narcissist. He was a cluster B. They're going to say, oh, honey, you're just, if that makes you feel better, just say that. But they don't know because they weren't there. And just wait. You may look at them on social media posting their smiling, kissing faces together. Oh, we're in love. Well, temporary. That'll be gone eventually. You can be assured of that. Sometimes they will be really skilled at their craft, and weeks and months that pass will just be more pain for you, they think. But keep in the back of your mind, it will not go on forever. It never has and it never will with these people. But they love to pretend like it will. So just sit tight and wait. And the less you're involved, the better, because if you do try to interfere, you'll just be labeled, look, she just can't get over me. See? She's crazy. In fact, maybe you should find a fake spouse and post your smiling pictures online together so it can see it and then see if it comes back. But that would be counter manipulation and probably not healthy, but just an idea that came. So it's very understandable to be sad, angry, and embarrassed because of the introductions, especially if you don't normally do it. And sure, on the surface it looks like, oh, you must have been a terrible failure if he just left you and went off with her. Well, she'll get what's coming to her. And as covered in other videos, wouldn't do you any good to call her and say, hey honey, let me warn you about what you're with, because you've already been painted as the evil ex. So if you do that, he'll say, oh, she's crazy, I told you. She's just saying that. So I wouldn't go there. One thing they would hate would be if you were to congratulate, oh, I think it's so wonderful you two are together. That would drive it crazy. But again, we're not recommending counter manipulation. But yes, it's very easy for us to take all this personally, but you have to, again, remember, it doesn't matter who you were. It was going to do the same thing to that whoever it was. Maybe the other person had other interests rather than family, maybe something else. Maybe they're friends at school or something. Well, if that was the case, this creature would be becoming flying monkey buddies with all the school people. So then if something went wrong, all the school buddies would be like, well, where'd he go? He's a great guy. Why aren't you with him? It's the same type of thing. And it's very easy for us to think that someone else is nicer looking or more successful or better. But the fact is, it doesn't matter. They could be homely, and that would make you crazy as well, because it doesn't matter. The deal is, it's a power struggle game. You're basically being punished because you did not comply with the rules of taking this person in completely. So because of that, this is your punishment. And because this person knows your weaknesses or your insecurities or your value systems, it's all played together. So it's designed to make you feel lower, make you feel horrible. The point to remember is that it's not because you're horrible, it's because they knew what got to you and they pressed those buttons and pushed them in as far as possible. And you think that this evil person's gotten lucky? Think again, because you're only here in this very moment, which time is some kind of illusion anyway, but it's actually something we can measure things with. So in this particular time, yes, it does seem as if you've been replaced with this lucky person, but keep in mind, watch your YouTube videos to see what these monsters end up doing, because everything with them is temporary. Nothing is forever. They say they want to be with you forever, but if you count the number of people they've said that to, there aren't enough forevers in the world for them to even conceive of that. As I stated before, remember, it's a con artist. It knows what means a lot to you and will try to appeal to that. The good thing or good news is you're lucky because you're not involved. Because let's say you were involved and you tried to get away, well, those types of interactions can become deadly or dangerous. If, let's say, there's no other option out there and it's got its hooks in you and chosen you and you don't allow it, or there was no other alternative, that's when they become deadly. That's when they stalk. That's when they destroy things and pretend like they didn't. And if you accuse them, tell others how unstable you are. So you're actually lucky, even though I realize the other parts that are the good parts make it hard to let go, but you've got to get rid of all of it, because the parts you liked you have to just accept, which is hard. They were fake. They weren't real. It's an empty, shelled person that's hollow inside and assumes the role of whatever it needs to seduce the person it's after, but there's nothing below the surface. I did another video about rejoicing. Check that one out. You've discarded the narcissist, but at the same time, it still feels like a discard if you did and then it ran off with whoever, because that makes it seem like whatever you had just didn't matter, because if it did matter, how could it replace it so quickly? Well, that's what they do. It's like a career for them. It's not your fault. It's theirs, or it's his. But as far as being confident anymore, just be glad you got rid of a toxic monster, because they represented all the good things you wanted and enjoyed and thought you found, but it was fake. It was a con artist. I can sit there and tell you to, oh, don't think about the person, but we all know that doesn't work. But hopefully you can, instead of looking at it that way, just step back and realize it for what it is. Because when we're right there near it or right after it, we're like stuck in the whole thing. It's like we're drowning in the whole thing at once. We can't really look at it objectively. But eventually, when time passes, you step back and you can actually see it for what happened. Plus, your brain usually retreads over previous things that seemed fishy at first, but you kind of told yourself, oh, well, that's just someone different, and now it makes more sense. The story is, you are better off. Imagine if it calls you, tonight I dumped her. She wasn't right for me. I want to be with you again. Just imagine the hell you would end up going through over and over again. Because in their brain, like the narcopath will tell you, if you ever have seen her or him or whatever it is, it's some kind of transgendered monster, they get off on the fact that they do what they do to you and then they're gone, and then you welcome them back. They think that you are a fool, but they will never say this, but they think she deserves what I'm going to do to her next, and just be glad that someone else is being subjected to that mess.
Please pardon my appearance. I had a little run-in with Bill Clinton and, well, you know the rest, you know. Anyway, I'm here to give you a few more confessions. First of all, remember when you caught me cheating and you just thought that was just such a devastating thing for you? You dumped me? Well, do you think that got me down? No. Because when I met you, I knew that you were really attracted to certain parts of my personality. You were really attracted to the fact that I could see you for who you really were, even though I faked it. But you didn't need to know that. I knew that my hooks were sunk into your life at least somewhat to make you question yourself. Is it really worth it to dump her? She did cheat, but she also recognized how beautiful my smile was, so do I really want to do this? And you decided to do it, probably based on some retarded fake news YouTube video you saw of some fool who told you to. But regardless, you hurt, didn't you? Because I showed you I didn't need you. I found someone else the next day. We moved in together and we're married. We were married at least, of course. Did that really bother you? Well, if it did, that was my intention. In fact, I personally couldn't stand the new one, but I knew because you tried to reject me, I'm not having that. You don't understand what the life of the narcopath is. We can be alone, but only after we've achieved a source or two or three of supply. And then we can reflect alone and congratulate ourselves as to how successful we've been. But when the person we're chasing is telling us goodbye before we're even started, no, we can't have that. That's why we normally have several others. Well, when you and I were dating, I had the other one that I married. See? So if you didn't work out, well, too bad. I've got this one. That's the way we have to do it. You wouldn't understand because you're a normal person. Whatever that is. Ah!
Well, look at you, my pretty. What are you? Are you a rat? Are you a cat? Are you a squirrel? What are you, my dear? I'm going to take care of you. I'm going to give you the life that you deserve. Mwah, mwah. And then I'm going to eat